Hey guys, what's up? Kalamazi here, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the new Mythic dungeons on the Battle for Azeroth Beta, and it's the Motherlode. I want to give a huge shout out to Quin69 for allowing us to run with him on his stream, and wish him the best moving forward with his new baby girl and his streaming career. Before we jump right into the run, I'd like to give a brief look at my current gear set. Currently I'm sitting right around 332, and a good bit of my gear is from other heroic or mythic dungeons that I have run. However, there are still a few blues like my chest and trinket that I would like to actually replace. Stat-wise, we're sitting right around 11% haste, 12.5% crit, 5% versatility, and around 33% mastery. As a Demonology, I like to have a good bit more haste, and actually have begun to prioritize it over other pieces of gear without haste, but it's still pretty early in the beta for actual optimization, and certain pieces with haste are actually just hard to come by. The Motherlode is probably the dungeon that I've been most interested in testing, as if you've seen some of my previous videos on it, you will know that it's just actually teeming with trash. At this point, players have learned a few skips that have really come in handy, but you still have to be very careful not to pull an additional unwanted pack, because if you do, it typically turns into multiple unwanted packs. The Motherlode is also the only mythic dungeon on beta that's actually scaling each player's gear to 325, so we should have a pretty accurate depiction of the current state of each class and spec in the run, which is actually Ret Pally, Demo Warlock, and Beast Mastery Hunter. Here's the build that I'm going to try here. I've been swapping between Grimoire of Service and Inner Demons in different dungeons, really trying to get a feel for which I like more. I think Grimoire of Service is really going to probably be the clear choice on teaming and or fortified weeks, but having a chance to summon an additional demon or two while passively summoning 2 to 3 imps has been very strong with Inner Demons, and it does provide a good bit of more consistent opening damage on trash and bosses alike without having a CD like Grimoire of Service does. The first boss is the coin-operated Crown Pummeler, and it's a single target encounter with a few abilities that you need to watch out for. His AoE knockback is a bit of a pain, so try to work your cast around that interrupt, and his frontal smash does need to be avoided at all costs. The bombs he throws out need to also be kicked back in his direction, as if they're not, they will explode, dealing a decent bit of proximity damage to surrounding players. Now it is worth mentioning that we did lose this boss, and the damage meter has us in first playing Demonology by about 800 DPS. The Ret Pally was in second, followed by Quin playing Beast Mastery, who was in third. It is worth mentioning that Quin was trying some kind of new kill command execute build, I believe, for the first part of this run, but I think he swaps back to the normal build near the third boss encounter. Damage breakdown shows that our Fell Imp's Firebolt was our main source of damage, contributing about 23% to our overall damage. This was followed by our pet's melee abilities, and then Demon Bolt and Hand of Gul'dan. With this being a single target encounter, this is pretty normal and what you would expect contribution-wise from your abilities when facing a single target encounter. We did less that boss, and for what I've seen, our Fell Firebolt contribution is normally a bit higher percentage-wise, while under the effects of Bloodlust than when not. The second boss is named Azeroth and has 4 adds with him that can be CC'd or need to be controlled a bit over the course of the fight. He does feel a tad undertuned, well, at least his adds do at the moment, and we were pretty much able to mostly ignore them or kite them a bit and simply kill Azeroth. This is a pretty hectic ad cleave fight, so I was expecting the Ret Pally to be pretty high damage-wise here, as most of the adds were in melee range for most of the encounter. The damage meter does have the rep pally ahead of myself and Quinn by a pretty significant margin. With it being an ad fight, but mainly needing to hit one target, this is pretty much what I expected to happen. The amount of cleave we bring is nothing really compared to a rep pally, however, and when I did take a look in the logs, I did see that we were first in damage dealt to Azeroth by about 300,000. The breakdown shows Dreadbite followed by Hand of Gul'dan as our main source of damage. You might be thinking Dreadbite is a bit out of place here, but remember that it does do a good bit of splash damage when you cast Call Dreadstalkers, and Hand of Gul'dan's impact damage is also still pretty high here as well with all the adds. Fell Firebolt was third, followed by Melee and fourth, and when looking at our single target damage to Azeroth, they were actually our main sources of damage to him. The third boss is Rixa Flux Flame, and she's another single target encounter, but can have a large amount of movement depending on if she puts some large patches of stuff on the ground near you or chooses to put them near other group members. Being spread evenly around her makes it easier to avoid the frontal cone spray she does and her other ground abilities as well. We did not have lust for the encounter, even though we do have the debuff, and that's because one of my passive imps decided to go pull a random trash pack on our first attempt wiping the group. The damage meter shows us in first at the end of the encounter, but just barely, as Quinn is right on our heels at 70 DPS less or so. The Red Pele did die during the encounter, but I would imagine he could have very well been in first, as the fight does seem to favor melee a bit more than ranged. The summary shows the Fell Firebolt was once again our main source of damage, followed by melee and then Demon Bolt and Hand of Gul'dan. I was expecting melee to be a bit higher here as well, as we have seen in the past that on fights with a good bit of movement, our pet's melee is normally much higher at times, even than Fell Firebolt. I suppose we did not actually have to move very much for the first part of the encounter, which is probably the reason Fell Firebolt is higher here than normal. The final boss is Mogu Ras Dunk, and he's a two-part encounter. Avoid the mechanics as much as you can in Phase 1, and in Phase 2 he summons a few adds that need to be killed while he takes to the air. Standing near the pillars that rise from the floor in Phase 2 when he's targeted or targets you by the smash ability makes him crash into them with his mount. Crashing into all the pillars returns from the Phase 1 where you encounter the same mechanics as the first Phase 1. After the actual mount is killed, he jumps out and attacks the group but has very little health and dies very quickly. The damage meter has us in first by about 80 DPS over the Rep Pally in second, and Quin just behind us playing BM by about 200 DPS. With the fight having multiple phases and a decent bit of movement, pet and shard / molten core management is very important here when heading into phase 1 for the ads to spawn and back into phase 1 when he lands for the final time. The summary shows the Fell Firebolt was once again our main source of damage, however Demon Bolt was actually second, followed closely by our pet's melee. I think our pet's melee could have been a bit higher with better pet and shard management heading into phase 2 and back into phase 1, but we also did have a pretty large amount of molten core procs as well, which does play a good part into Demon Bolt being so high here percentage wise. Finally, the trash breakdown does show Quin in first by a pretty solid margin, followed by us in second and then the Rep Pally in third. With the Motherlode having just so much trash present, I felt taking a look at trash damage was especially important here. I can't wait to get into Mythic Plus whenever it's implemented and see the Motherlode on certain teaming and or fortified weeks as well. I think a good bit of the new dungeons are going to be very interesting with affixes both new and old heading into BFA, and with Blizzard having an entire expansion and almost 2 MDIs under their belt, they should be able to tune them pretty well with some very interesting affix combinations. The summary shows the Hand of Gul'dan was our main source of trash damage, followed by our Dreadstalker's Dreadbite splash damage and then Implosion. If we had chosen the Grimoire of Service talent, our Felguard and melee damage would be a whole lot higher here, and it's certainly going to be something that I try next run. Having Grimoire Service line up with your Demonic Commander's cooldown is really strong for trash packs that last a little bit longer than we normally see in the Motherlode. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this look at the Motherlode on Mythic difficulty. Let me know what you thought of it and the talent build I was running in the comments below. If you want to look at the logs in the run, I'll have a link to them in the description below as well. I want to thank Quin69 once again so much for allowing us to run with him on a stream and wish him the best moving forward. If you guys want to see more WoW and BFA content, smash those like, share, and subscribe buttons as your support really helps. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you in battle for Azeroth. Peace.